Hey there, everyone. I'm meteorologist Cassie Nall, and this is your 10 Weather Impact Recap for the week. Let's start with a look at some of the top weather stories from around the country. The Northern Lights made a dazzling appearance Tuesday night all across the U.S. We could see the hues of pinks and even greens with the naked eye here in East Tennessee. That first video you just saw was a sped-up video from Ober Mountain near Gatlinburg, and the next video was actually from our tower cam here in North Knoxville. The Aurora Borealis appears when charged particles from the sun collide with gases in the Earth's upper atmosphere. And in Tuesday night's case, the lights showed up during a level 4 out of 5 severe geomagnetic storm, which is why the colors were so vibrant well down into the southeast. Many of our viewers braved the chilly temperatures and gusty winds to capture some amazing photos. Maggie was able to see some pillars and even some green near the horizon in Maynardville. And Emily took this photo of deep pink colors through the trees in Oliver Springs. Even folks up at the LeConte Lodge were able to get a glimpse of the Northern Lights. Beautiful, beautiful viewpoint from there, too. And speaking of Mount LeConte, they were definitely the winners when it came to snow totals during our little taste of winter that we had earlier this week. An unusually deep trough of low pressure opened the doors for Arctic air to pour down here into the southeast. And with moisture in place, we had on and off flurries, snow showers as well through the day on Monday. Now, once the clouds cleared, the snow-capped Smokies created some beautiful scenery. Just look at these photos from the LeConte Lodge, looking like a winter wonderland. Crews at the top of Mount LeConte reported 7.5 inches of snow and wind chills as low as 20 degrees below zero. And one more fun fact, the LeConte Lodge, located at 6,593 feet in elevation, had the coldest temperature recorded anywhere in the lower 48, with a low of 3 degrees on Tuesday morning. And just like the Northern Lights, the cold air also made it down to Florida. Lows in the 30s and 40s are cold for the Sunshine State. So cold that some iguanas fell from the trees. And no, this isn't a joke. The cold-blooded reptiles become sluggish when the temperatures drop, and eventually they can't hold on to the branches anymore. But don't worry, the iguanas usually are not harmed by the fall. And with just a few hours in the sun, their bodies warm back up, and they are good to go. From ice to cold and fire, I should say from ice and cold to fire, Kilauea volcano erupted again on Sunday. Visitors to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park were treated to views of twin lava fountains spewing molten rock more than 1,000 feet into the air. The eruption was short-lived, only lasting about 5 hours. This was the 36th episode of an eruption that began back in December of 2024. Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. In the Caribbean, the United States will provide nearly $12.6 million in additional emergency assistance to Jamaica and Haiti following Hurricane Melissa. The State Department says the majority of the funding, more than $10 million, will go to Jamaica to help with clearing debris, providing shelter, and emergency health care. $2.5 million will go to Haiti to support very similar efforts. Category 5 Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Jamaica just over 2 weeks ago in late October. In Colorado, new studies have led to a surprising discovery when it comes to carbon emissions and trees. You'd think that forests would be helping, but in some cases, they may be part of the problem. Brad Hicks explains the new findings.
America's forests, lush, green, and filled with fresh air. More than 200 billion trees absorbing carbon dioxide and giving us oxygen. When they soak up that carbon, they store it.
If you hold a piece of dry wood, half of that weight is carbon.
All that carbon locked up in the trees is why forests are often called carbon sinks. They store a lot of carbon.
U.S. forests offset about 13% or so of the national greenhouse gas emissions.
But by measuring plots of trees over time, Tony Vorster came across a disturbing discovery in Colorado.
We found that in the past 2 decades or so, that Colorado's forests have emitted more carbon than they've captured.
Colorado is not alone. The forests in at least 8 states have been net carbon emitters in recent years. California's 2020 fire season alone wiped out 18 years of greenhouse gas reductions in the state. The problem goes back a century when we started suppressing forest fires.
By suppressing those fires, we have what we call overstocked conditions, maybe unnaturally dense conditions across the landscape, and this is sort of a west-wide issue.
At the same time, we're coming into a period of climate change with more drought, and that can lead to more bark beetle outbreaks and fires.
Which means more decaying or burning wood in the forests, and that emits carbon. too much for the healthy trees to offset with the carbon they absorb, and the outlook is forest emissions will increase.
With a changing climate, I think when we think about the future, we're not going into a world of less fire.
I think that's where the carbon sink thing gets alarming, because maybe it's not going to save us. So we shouldn't be looking to our forests to, bail us out of climate change. And I think that's a big takeaway from this.
In Colorado, Brad Hicks reporting.
As we get closer to the Milan Cortina Olympic Games in February, athletes are becoming concerned about the future of their winter sports. A study from Canadian scientists projects that of the 21 previous host cities, only one will be able to reliably host the Winter Olympics in the next 50 years. Today, co-host Al Roker sits down with meteorologist Chase Kane to discuss what a changing climate could mean for the future of the Winter Games.
I'd never really spent much time in Atlanta and thinking, this is unbelievably hot and humid.
Of the nearly 24 Summer and Winter Olympics Al Roker has covered for the Today Show,
let's check the weather. Al Roker has been.
His first was in 1996 in my hometown Atlanta, which we both remember as being unbearable, with the heat index topping 100 degrees several times during the games.
I mean, it was brutal and unusually warm for Atlanta. So it was then all of a sudden that you're thinking, I wonder if something's changing here.
Al remembers those summer games as one of the first moments he started to wonder about what climate change was doing to our weather, a pattern that continued in Athens, in Tokyo, where I also struggled with blistering heat while covering the debut of Olympic skateboarding. But Al told me it really came into focus seeing the Winter Olympics struggle to make and keep snow. And now, scientists project that of the 21 host cities for the Winter Games, only Sapporo, Japan might stay reliably cold enough to host the Winter Olympics because of climate change.
One of the things that I've been talking to some of the Team USA athletes about is that they're concerned that as our planet keeps getting hotter, they wonder what this means for the future of their sport.
Well, I think the Olympics are really going to have to start considering, finding places that are a little more climate resilient when it comes to winter weather, and maybe just locating there, because the footprint for areas and countries that can reliably host a Winter Olympics is really shrinking pretty rapidly.
I mean, even Salt Lake is on the roster coming up. They've had some really warm winters where they're not getting a lot of snow, where Park City the season doesn't start till January or February.
Exactly. So I think it's one of those nexuses of sport, commerce, tourism, and climate all coming together. Where can you go where reliably you're going to have an adequate base for snow, for ski, to make snow? If I were on the IOC organizing committee, this would be something that would keep me up at night.
Christmas is about 6 weeks away, but some farms prepare for the holiday year-round. Alexis Clemens in Connecticut shows us how much work goes into growing Christmas trees and how this year's weather may impact your pick.
It may take you short of a day to find the perfect Christmas tree for your family, but for those that grow them, it takes almost a decade.
I need to figure out what you want in your living room 8 years from now.
This is John Zen Jr., owner of Zen Tree Farm.
Hi, Dan.
We talked about how our forecasts impact his business and how the conditions earlier this year did wonders for the crop.
And the weather has a huge effect on us. This year in the spring, we had crazy rain every 3 or 4 days. Well, we had some of the best growth ever.
Balsam and Fraser fir trees typically grow about 1 foot in height per year in ideal conditions, which we haven't seen in quite some time.
We have not had what I'd call an average weather year in a lot of years. The hots are hotter, the colds are colder, the wets are wetter, the dries are drier.
But John says he's always thankful.
That's a little gift.
For a good harvest when it comes around.
You take the good and the bad and you kind of blend them together and you make the best you can.
This involves detailed monitoring of the conditions on the farm 24/7.
If we ever have another hurricane, he's set up to lay over.
365 days a year.
This is where my sleigh goes. We spend all year pruning and shaping, and we spend all year mowing, and we spend all year controlling the weeds, and we spend all year controlling the insects, and it just never ends.
And while November is crunch time for the Zens, they try to get as much done as they can before daylight saving time comes to an end.
This time of the year, there's not much daylight. It's a struggle to get everything we try to get done.
How are you? And I couldn't leave before feeding their 2 reindeer, which John calls the B team, who he makes sure are always ready to help Santa if he needs them.
Part of our getting ready for the season is to make sure the reindeer are ready for the big job on Christmas Eve.
And now let's get a check of your 7-day forecast. The good news is we have some pretty quiet weather for the next several days. And for UT's homecoming against New Mexico State, that game kickoff is at 4:15 Saturday afternoon. We'll have partly to mostly sunny skies and warm, I put that in quotes, for this time of year. Temperatures, highs will get up to near 70 degrees. Remember, though, the sun will be going down probably by halftime, and then the temperatures will be dropping, but not necessarily getting cold that evening. Later on Sunday and into the day Monday, a few sprinkles will be possible as a couple systems pass just to our north, so check back for updates to that. But overall, a nice warming trend after our taste of winter earlier this week. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can always get the latest in the forecast with the 10 News app. It's free to download in the App Store.